Imagine reaching the pinnacle of success, with millions hanging on your every word. Then, a single devastating moment shatters it all. How do you recover? What does it take to find redemption when your deepest failures are broadcast to the world? But what if that downfall wasn't a sudden implosion, but a calculated act of biblical revenge? Today, we remember Reverend Jimmy Swaggart, who passed away on July 1st, 2025, at the age of 90. He was a force, a pioneer, and a voice that touched millions globally. His ministry, Jimmy Swaggart Ministries, confirmed his peaceful passing, but his life was far from always peaceful. While his early years were marked by astounding growth and influence, a pivotal chapter in his life became defined by public pain, devastating scandal, and an apology that would forever be etched in American religious history. An apology triggered by a dramatic tale of retaliation. By the late 1980s, Jimmy Swaggart was at the absolute zenith of his power. His Sunday broadcasts captivated over 8 million viewers in more than 100 countries. He was a household name, a moral arbiter for countless faithful. But beneath the surface, a bitter rivalry simmered with a fellow Assemblies of God evangelist, Marvin Gorman. Both men commanded fierce loyalty, both had burgeoning ministries, and both aspired to global influence. The stage was set for a power struggle, not of grace, but of what some called prophets of prey. The seeds of Swaggart's downfall were sown in 1986. Swaggart, in a move that would prove tragically ironic, publicly exposed Marvin Gorman for alleged extramarital affairs. Gorman was defrocked from the Assemblies of God, his ministry shattered. But Gorman was not one to forgive. Driven by a desire for biblical revenge, he hired a private detective to turn the tables on his accuser. The plan for retaliation was meticulous. Gorman's son, Randy, and son-in-law, Garland Bilbo, staked out Room 12 of the Travel Inn on Airline Highway in Baton Rouge. A camera with a telephoto lens, draped in black cloth, was aimed directly at Room 7. When Jimmy Swaggart arrived, he reportedly entered Room 7. Randy Gorman and Garland Bilbo swiftly deflated the tires on Swaggart's vehicle, then called Marvin Gorman, whose church was conveniently nearby. Photos were taken. Evidence of Swaggart outside Room 7 with Deborah Murphy, a local prostitute. Gorman soon arrived, confronting Swaggart directly, allegedly asking him what he was doing there. According to Ann Rose Seaman's unauthorized biography, Gorman secured a promise. Swaggart would publicly apologize and begin the process of Gorman's reinstatement to the Assemblies of God. Gorman offered silence in exchange for Swaggart publicly admitting he had lied about Gorman's affairs. Gorman waited for almost a year. When Swaggart failed to respond to a hand-delivered note informing him his time was up, Gorman made his move. On February 16, 1988, he contacted a key figure in the Assemblies of God, ultimately presenting the damaging photos and evidence of Room 7's use for prostitution. The Presbytery leadership decided Swaggart should be suspended. Confronted by church leadership and with the media circling, Swaggart faced an impossible choice. On February 21, 1988, he stepped onto the platform of his family worship center, not to preach a sermon of triumph, but to deliver an apology that would become one of the most widely watched public confessions in American history. With tears streaming down his face, his voice choked with anguish, he declared,
I have sinned against you, my Lord. And I would ask that your precious blood would wash and cleanse every stain until it is in the seas of God's forgetfulness. Thank you. Thank you. And God bless you.
He apologized to his wife, Frances, his family, his congregation, and the millions who had looked to him for spiritual guidance. The Assemblies of God, his denomination, called for a period of rehabilitation and a year's suspension from the pulpit. But in a move that further polarized his supporters and critics, Swaggart, believing God had told him to return, defied the extended ban, and continued preaching after only 3 months. This act led to his eventual defrocking by the Assemblies of God. The fallout was immediate and immense. His once booming ministry saw a drastic reduction in viewership and contributions. Many staff members left, and his Bible college faced a steep decline in enrollment. Then, just 2 years later, in 1991, Swaggart got caught with his pants down again, facing further allegations that compounded his public struggles. The media, once his amplification, now became his relentless interrogator. He was lampooned, criticized, and his name became almost synonymous with disgrace. It was a period of profound public pain, a fall from the highest spiritual perch imaginable, exacerbated by the echoes of a revenge fulfilled. Yet, through it all, Jimmy Swaggart never stopped preaching. He stepped away from denominational leadership but returned to the pulpit, rebuilding his ministry from the ground up. Slowly, painstakingly, a core of loyal supporters returned. They were drawn not by perfection, but by his continued transparency, his undeniable talent, and the powerful, unmistakable presence of the Spirit in his messages. His return wasn't about erasing the past, but about acknowledging it, seeking forgiveness, and relentlessly pursuing his call. As his family's publicist, Megyn Kelly, observed, "We've seen many people fall, but very few have you seen make a comeback like this." Reverend Swaggart is still reaching millions daily, which far surpasses the reach he had then. His restoration was not without scrutiny, but it was a testament to his unwavering conviction. He poured his energy into Sun Life Broadcasting Network, which he launched in his 60s, expanding his reach to every continent. His sermons are translated into over a dozen languages, and the worship services at Family Worship Center continue to draw thousands, both in person and online. Even in his late 80s, Reverend Swaggart remained active, preaching, recording music, and dedicating his time to his life's work, the Expositor's Study Bible, distributing millions of copies worldwide. At his 90th birthday celebration, Pastor Gabriel Swaggart, his eldest grandson, eloquently captured his grandfather's impact. "Your obedience to God, your dedication to preaching the cross, and your heart for leading people to the Lord have impacted millions of lives, especially mine." Though a bitter act of revenge once threatened to define him, history will likely remember Reverend Jimmy Swaggart not for the stumble, but for the profound authenticity of his apology, the steadfastness of his faith, and the extraordinary way he returned, always, to the foot of the cross, continuing to serve God until his very last breath. On Father's Day, 2025, Jimmy suffered cardiac arrest. As he lay unconscious in the hospital, prayers poured in from around the world, not just from supporters, but from many who had initially written him off as irredeemably fallen. On July 1st, 2025, at 7:30 a.m., Jimmy Swaggart passed away peacefully, surrounded by loved ones. The scandalous televangelist had become something far more valuable, a testament to grace, redemption, and the possibility of second chances. He is survived by his beloved wife of over 70 years, Frances, his son Donnie, his grandchildren, and countless spiritual sons and daughters. He also leaves behind an extraordinary American musical family legacy, connected to his iconic cousins, Jerry Lee Lewis and Mickey Gilley. Jimmy Swaggart's story is ultimately not about the scandal that nearly destroyed him. It's about what happened after. In a culture that loves to build people up only to tear them down, Jimmy's life demonstrates something profound: that our failures don't have to be our final chapters. His tearful confession in 1988 became famous because it was honest, but his restoration over the following decades became legendary because it was authentic. Jimmy Swaggart fell as spectacularly as anyone in public ministry, but he also rose again, different, humbled, and ultimately more effective than before. The man who once preached about perfection learned to preach about grace. The minister who once condemned others' failures learned to embrace his own brokenness. And in doing so, he found his true calling, not as a perfect preacher but as a wounded healer.